What's going on, everybody? It's FREEDO here for your Overwatch. Following up the developer update, the PTR did go live with a host of crazy changes. The Torb rework is live and he is nutty. You're gonna want to come check him out. But we got buffs and nerfs all over the place. First up, there's updated visuals to all shields and barriers to increase readability. We'll have to see what you guys think about that. I assume especially with like Brigitte's shield, it'll make it more clear when it's starting to crack perhaps. But more specifically onto Brigitte, her barrier shield health has been reduced from 600 health to 500. So now, not a Roadhog, but instead a Winston in terms of overall health for her shield. The developers say this will make it more rewarding for opponents who pressure her. I think this coincides especially with some of the ranged character buffs that we're seeing further in the list, because in general, trying to pressure down Brigitte's shield just takes way too long. And I'm not sure I'm convinced that 500 health is even enough to change that, but we'll have to see how that develops. McCree's combat roll cooldown has been reduced from 8 seconds to 6 seconds. Really big deal. Developers say previously the cooldown of McCree's combat roll felt too restrictive, which sometimes prohibited players from using it. The new, faster cooldown should allow for more flexibility when choosing between using it for mobility or an instant reload. That's really key, because of course Hanzo gets a lunge. McCree's roll, even in comparison, isn't really anything to write home about. So finally, he might feel a bit more nimble in escaping, more similar to how Hanzo does right now. But since he could run up walls, I think he's still preferred in terms of being able to escape. But McCree does have Fan the Hammer, which reloads after he uses combat roll, and a stun, which is basically an insta-kill on cooldown. So very interested to see if this pushes up McCree's playability. I think it will, because 6 seconds is really short. I mean, that's equal to a Winston leap, and that's a very crucial number to focus in on, because a lot of cooldowns in the game are like 5-6 seconds, especially the dive tanks. Pharah got a host of changes. This is what we mentioned in the earlier video, intended to make her more skill-based and rewarding, and many of these we did see coming. First up, Concussive blast cooldown has been reduced from 12 seconds to 9, which is a very big deal. Her rocket launcher attack speed has been increased, lowering the recovery between shots from 0.9 to 0.75, a distinct fraction speedier in her follow-up shot. But the damage has been redistributed between explosion and impact. So now the explosion damage has been reduced from 80 to 65, and the direct impact goes up from 40 to 55. Now, the important thing to remember with this is you have to combine these two numbers together. So before, it did a total of 120 with a direct, with most of it being the explosion damage. Now, it's still going to do 120 total, but has a faster fire rate, which is important, and a bigger percentage of the damage is required to hit directs than before. Also, the explosion knockback has been reduced by 20%, which you can take it or leave it with this one. This is something they changed a long time ago with Pharah, and targets bobbling up when you hit them hurts their ability to aim back at you, but also makes it a bit more difficult, in my opinion, to set up for a follow-up shot, because sometimes it's hard to tell how they're going to bobble after you hit them. So on either side, shooting or getting shot at, the interaction is a bit more reliable, and I'm sure hitscan players will be more than happy to have a reduced knockback when getting shot with a rocket. Also, self-knockback range increased by 25%. Moving on, Mei had some updated visual effects for all abilities, and a few changes to Orisa and Soldier in the way that their spread works. This is a really big deal. Orisa's fusion driver now, maximum spread has been reduced from 1.5 to 1.2. The developers said that the previous iteration's spread caused it to feel too random when leading targets at a distance, taking into account the projectile's travel time. We've tightened the spread slightly, which should leave her close and mid-range damage potentially largely unchanged, while making it feel better to try to hit targets at longer ranges. I would say Pharah, because most things that are stationary at long ranges are either like a tank or a widow scoping up. Usually Pharah is the one that I think is going to see the biggest difference in this spread. So keep that in the back of your mind as you look at the Pharah changes, which is a buff to better players, but a nerf to the way she's played in dominating console and at lower tiers of play for sure. Next change, Soldier 76's heavy pulse rifle now requires more shots until it reaches maximum spread. It was 6, now it's 9. The developers say Soldier 76's damage output was a bit too low, but not too far off from where we feel it should be. Making it take a few more shots to reach max spread smooths out the weapon spread curve and should help his damage to be more consistent. consistent. As a soldier player, I feel like this is an incredibly big deal, because at least on the live version of the game, there's a serious cap to how effective you could be at longer ranges, because you functionally have to burst fire, and in Overwatch, the little bursts of damage aren't often enough to kill a target. They're going to get away, so being able to be more accurate for longer will increase your ability to do consecutive damage to a target, putting up Soldier 76's lethality. So keep that in mind up against characters like Pharah, but realistically, any matchup, especially up against squishy characters like Genji double jumping, or even the ranged battle between him and characters like Widowmaker and Hanzo, he should see a slight uptick in performance in some of these duels. Now this next one, the one we've all been waiting for, Torbjorn's big rework. Now I'm not going to go into depth with all of the changes because we did cover it in the past video, but there's some changes in here that weren't mentioned before that I want to highlight. For example, reducing the size of Torbjorn's head hitbox volume by 10% is a huge deal. Headshotting into Torb was one of the main reasons that Seagull said to, I believe, either Scott Mercer or Jeff Kaplan himself when they had those interviews on his stream. It's the main reason why pros didn't use him, is that he's just so easy to hit. Well, now his crit zone effectively is 10% smaller, which I think is going to be a really big deal, because right now he can pop overdrive and run at you with 350 HP and armor health. He's quite terrifying, and I almost wonder if this is going to be a step too far. He feels really strong to me, but we'll have to do more testing before I give my opinions on where I think he's at. As for his primary weapon and alternate fire, the projectile speed increased, reload time reduced, and very importantly, your deployed turret will fire at whatever you fire at. Very big deal. This is probably one of the biggest sleeper buffs on the entire character that I want you to look out for. His turret will focus fire with you on whatever you're shooting at, giving a lot of agency and added DPS, and a change that I think they probably should have added to Torb a long time ago if they had this in the works. But his alternate fire's damage has went down a bit, but the recovery time was also lowered, so it's more nimble, and there's less downtime between shots. And also, the randomized spread has been readjusted. I don't know if that means it's like Doomfist's new spread where it is consistent every shot. We'll have to look into that. Changes to his turret that you'll want to clue into: when he throws it, it goes on a 5-second cooldown, and when it's destroyed, it goes on a 10-second cooldown. So you want to be careful where you place it, but it does build itself, allowing you to set it and forget it. Also, you can't build a new turret to essentially reposition it if the turret is firing or if it's taken damage within 3 seconds. And that's a real big deal about min-maxing Torb's new turret, because if it gets destroyed, it's on cooldown for 10 seconds. So you don't want that to happen. You want to place it in a safe spot where it actually can do something. And if the enemy doesn't focus it down properly, then you might be able to sneak it away and reposition it, but not until a 3-second window of it not taking damage. His new ability, Overload and Molten Core, are both insane. You got to go onto the PTR and try these things out. Overload lasts for 5 seconds, but it's on a long 12-second cooldown once you pop it. Instantly gives you 150 armor and increases movement, attack, and reload speed by 30%. You turn into a serious bamf popping this ability, and whereas a on-the-ground character like McCree often was very diveable and exploitable because of his lack of mobility, Torb now is like the new Brigitte, in my opinion, where on a cooldown, he just turns into an absolute badass. 150 armor instantly and being more lethal is a seriously big deal. I think it's going to be very powerful, but where it's going to live or die is how it plays out in the fact that he's such an easy target to hit. So my question would be, how easy is it for a character like Hanzo to just blast a bunch of storm arrow headshots into him and kind of undo the massive advantage that this brings on a cooldown? We'll have to see. His ultimate, though, undoubtedly is very exciting. It lets him fire up to 10 molten globules that create damage pools where they land for 10 seconds. They bounce off walls and ceilings until coming into contact with the ground. The base damage is 130, but 190 against armor. So tanks and Brigitte, look out. The coolest thing about this, when I finally got my hands on being able to use it, is that you can aim it wherever you want. So you could place a molten core path and force the enemy to have to walk essentially on hot coals to even get close to you. Molten core is an incredible damage denial ability, and beyond that, just area punish. Whereas ability like Mei's ultimate is a big area of effect, it takes relatively a long time to get set up, and often players can dodge it. Well, Molten Core now is just instantly on the ground, instant damage at your feet, and most importantly is going to bypass things like Brigitte's shield in order to deal damage to her as she attempts to just hold her ground. She's gotta move. So the entire concept of a comp like Goats being able to jump onto an objective with too much shielding and tanking is almost entirely different with this ability being added to the game. Torb just says, nope, no objective for you. You better get off or it's burn, baby, burn. From what I can tell, this is a direct response to much of the community's concerns about Brigitte and the comps that she enables. So it'll be exciting to see how that develops. Guys, that's gonna be everything for this PTR update video. What do you think about these changes? I'm really excited to play with a lot of these new and improved heroes, particularly Torb. I never would have guessed that they would go where they went with the new Torb, but whether he's balanced or not, I'm seriously looking forward to digging into that. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. If you did enjoy the video, please be sure to leave it a like. It really does help us out, lets us know that you're enjoying the content. And if you haven't already, please subscribe because we upload each and every day. So you're gonna wanna hit the bell icon so that you get notified when our videos go live. Link in the description is our Twitter, where we tweet out news, updates, and dank memes. That's been it for me. I've been FREEDO for your Overwatch. I'll see you guys next time.